More talk with Amy. More talk with Amy. More talk with Amy. More talk.
Oh, we have company. Welcome. Welcome to More Talk with Amy. I am your host, Amy Moore. And we are going to have an exciting time with this podcast. This podcast will be focused on entrepreneurship. It will be focused on academics. We'll touch on statistics, of course. And then anything in between. It could be a personal problem. It could be a problem at school. It could be a whole bunch of things. Okay? And a little bit about myself. I am the owner of More Statistics Consulting, LLC. And I'm also the founder of More Statistics Consulting Foundation. So, without further ado, let's go on to the show. Our guest today is Ms. Edna Epilou, the founder of Papillon Company, based in Metuchen, New Jersey. Papillon opened its doors in September of 2020 as a vintage clothing and antique furniture and decor store. Before Papillon, Edna worked in the humanitarian sector in West Africa and Central Asia, and prior to that, worked with an institutional bank in Massachusetts. She has 4 degrees in the fields ranging from journalism to MBA in energy management. So without further ado, let's speak to Ms. Epilou.
Thank you for having me. I'm really thrilled to be here and having this discussion with you.
Yes. Tell me more about your business, Papillon Company.
Well, it is actually, this is where I'm sitting right now, and it is actually quite an exciting thing to talk about. If I really had to use a word that I hear quite often, is that it is a destination. So if you think of your small local town or your local village, and when your family come to visit and you're taking them about town, Papillon Company is the one store here in Metuchen that people bring their folks to, their friends to just kind of take a look about. So as a destination, people come in to explore. One part, they explore fine art, because you think of it as a gallery. There is definitely gallery space and run as a gallery, but it is also a place where visitors get to see a lot of products that are made by independent producers or small producers, and many of them are actually within the community, or say like within 5 to 10 miles of the shop. So I've got maybe a total of 15 potters in here, or ceramic artists who make both decorative pieces as well as tableware pieces, and then 3 or 4 fine artists at a time that either, are painting or collages or just mixed media, and photographers. So it's really a place for independent artists and local products, and for visitors to see what is made locally or, by independent producers. But I would say, part of the reason when I opened it, and if I also had to describe it differently, I would say it is a place where people come to connect, and to connect with themselves, but also to perhaps connect with someone else. So when I say connect with themselves, you look at the art. There's something about looking at art, whether in a museum or in this space, which allows time to stop still for a minute. And I think once that happens, and you tend to experience your emotions differently, without the noise of television or the big stores and the bright lights. And so I find that a lot of people do become emotional, and share it either with me or with themselves. But it's such a great way to connect personally. But also we do a lot of events, whether it's something that as a shop I put on myself, or collaborate with other folks. So we have these events which enable people to connect with someone new, or even with their neighbor or people they've known before, especially before COVID, that they haven't for a long period of time connected with. So whiskey tastings, jazz performances, even the art exhibitions when we have openings where there's a bit of wine and cheese, yoga. Those are just things that facilitate connecting with others.
How did you get started with your business?
How did I get started?
Yes.
I think that at the core of it is really connection. And, I opened in September 2020 when, retail was, everything was really closing down. You don't open a shop, to be honest. Maybe you open a restaurant because there was some support for restaurants. But I at the core of a lot of what I do with this shop is connection, and the COVID and its restrictions was very much about isolating people. And I'm a person who really enjoys the interaction with people. And I know that there are many people who either they just didn't have anyone, period. And so that opportunity to connect wasn't there. So having the shop here was really, opening it was a way for people to at least be able to come in and say hello to one face in a week or one face in a day. They're walking their dog, they would shout through the door into the shop. And so that is really, and actually even virtually, I had these online virtual cocktail making classes, and people were able to meet people who had moved into the neighborhood. And I was able to, meet a few folks. And that was 2 years ago. And the same people who connected through, for example, those virtual cocktail mixology classes are still the very same people who now come to events within the shop. So that was really an important part. But I also value very much the idea of aging gracefully. And I think that a lot of older people, I know young people have the same problem in a way, or face the same problem, but older people more often than not don't necessarily have social connections, which are a bit beyond superficial. And I feel that opening this shop and also having certain events in here are kind of a platform for people to try and connect. Whether one person makes a connection or whether 100 people make a connection, it's still making a difference for one person. And if for those who are aging, I mean, it's important that they feel welcome, and they feel that there's somebody out there outside the normal venues that anyway exist, but they still also this venue where they may not feel entirely alone. So I would say that was important. And I have to say the last thing is the most basic thing is my love for furniture, especially antique furniture and fine art, because I love these two things. I think art is so healing, and beautiful furniture for me, or with history. There's such lovely things. Well, you can't really see what's behind me, but just having furniture that has so much, for me, it's so rich, it has so much character, and you can tell somebody bumped into it, or 100 people have definitely touched this piece of furniture. You see the dents, you see the coloration, and they just make homes so rich and warm and cozy, I think, compared to, say, very brand new pieces all the time. So that you always find that in the shop.
Oh, what I have to admit, when I look at your social media, it is so inviting. It looks like a place that you can go and it's a safe environment, meaning that, it's homey and you just feel like you're at home, and it's wonderful. It looks like a place I definitely have to stop by.
I would love, yes.
I have a question for you. So how is it being, I know how it is being a business owner for me, but for you, how is that? The challenges and the benefits.
But I think that if you choose to be a business owner, you know that you're taking on a tough challenge, which sometimes is more challenging than anything else you've ever had. And so I think very many small business owners, there's a part, yeah, some people do it for the money, but a lot of people don't first do it for the money. Yes, they do it because they feel in their life they really want a challenge, but also maybe it's to have a purpose. And for me, very much, I know my why, and my why is always I really want to feel that I'm helping people connect, that I'm connecting to people, and I know that other businesses can do it, but I really feel driven to creating a space where not only can they connect, but where people feel comfortable, where they, my this shop is like a restaurant, but with a bar, for example, but without serving the liquor. You can, you in a bar, you kind of socialize and you kind of meet people you don't know. Very often they actually maybe live in your neighborhood, but I definitely don't serve any liquor. So maybe, which is maybe a benefit of a bar because there's money kind of in that, but I would say that it
I
is really,
never like the way the bars smell. I'll be
yeah,
honest with you. The smell of alcohol, I never
yeah,
like that.
no,
Yeah,
no, yeah.
you
So
know,
guess what?
some
So
people
yeah,
can ignore it and just, I
y-
can't.
yeah,
I
well, you
get
know
it.
what? We have to
Yeah.
find a bar that is quite nice smelling, but for sure, I would say, but I think that it's how is it being a business owner? It is, I I feel like I have a baby. It's only 2 years, so I know that this business is in its infancy, but at the same time it has stopped feeling like a brand new business, but it just feels like a baby that you cannot ignore. You have to feed the baby, you just can't abandon the baby,
Right there.
yeah. But I feel that it has passed the stage of just crying, in that annoying way, but it's
Ah,
still I
ah,
know, yeah, but it's still,
yeah.
and now I feel that I focus more on, or I'm trying to, the things that I was putting too much focus on, for
Hmm.
example, social media is still important, but actually it's only like a little bit of a tactic in the business, you still have to build some of the business fundamentals. Now I find myself going to work on how do you actually expand your customer base? How do you retain your customers? How do you, um, just basic I just have a very different way of thinking now of the business, which is I think what makes entrepreneurship really fun, because you go through intense periods of difficulty, and you get through that particular difficulty. It doesn't necessarily go away, but then you move to a different stage. And so and maybe in this next stage you find so much difficulty and a challenge, but the point is to, how do you make it less of a challenge? How do you make it less difficult? How do you manage it and go to the next stage? So I think that if there's one thing I'll say very quickly about owning a business, is you kind of, at least in the beginning, you are a master of everything, right? You might not be perfect, but you try to master everything. I was so complaining all the time about social media, especially Instagram and Facebook, but Instagram, oh, it was so difficult. I just couldn't do it. And it was, I mean, I could, but I couldn't. But I tell you, I every time people asked me about maybe how is business or the social media, and it was always so negative from my part, right? I was complaining. So I took like 100 hours of online courses on Instagram and photography and videography and whatever. Now I can do it with my eyes closed. But I think it is so important. We should never underestimate these CPD, this development courses, whether in your job or even as a business owner, that it's always about learning all the time. When something is so difficult, you just try and learn a little bit about it, and it actually makes the challenge less problematic.
What
Anyway,
have you learned about people from running a business? Is there anything that stands out to you that you've learned?
let me say two things, okay? I would say the first thing is that, especially small business owners, or even women, because I never really maybe worked a lot with women before, but I found small business, when you find your core of small business owners, they are so willing to help you. Okay.
Mm.
So I've never, they don't, of course, you have to find them in the right industry, but they don't necessarily look at you as competition, especially the ones who are not in
Mm.
your geography. And for me, you're one example. You're somebody who's given,
Oh,
we've had
thank
some
you.
fabulously long conversations where you're
Yes.
sharing all this information that is so important that I haven't asked for, but I need. I don't,
Yes.
and I think this is what I found with small business owners. And that's also why we're having this conversation, because I think we learn from each other from these things, and maybe what some of my challenges can help another entrepreneur to grow, and in a different way, or maybe there's some information that can help them and make it less difficult for them. And I would say the second thing, again, other than amazing business owners who just want to share, is that
Mm.
actually human beings are they really need people. And I see this very much from either my customers or people who come into the shop, that we really need, that ultimately people are just humans, and they want to feel connected to another human being. And that for very many, life is lonely. And I think I'm quite surprised at maybe because of the kind of retail space I have, I'm quite amazed at how many people out there don't feel connected to others. That, I think, is what I've learned is quite, yeah.
Interesting. That's very interesting. What would you say to someone who wants to start a business? What is your advice?
Um, I would say, well, I think three things. The first thing I would say, obviously, is do some research. Don't do all the research out there, but the first thing is do some research. Then the second thing I would say is just jump in, because you're never going to maybe necessarily know everything. At some point, after doing some research and talking to people, you just have to do it. And you actually really have to make that decision. I'm going to do it. Yeah, especially when you have the choice between, say, you're already in a profession. Some people who are not in a profession already, maybe they see it as one way, but if you're kind of already on a certain professional path, I would say just do it, period. And I
Okay.
think, yeah, and I think part of doing that is also being a little bit wanting to challenge yourself, because having your own business is just not easy. Even if for some people it might start off very well, you still have to you're still going to face sometimes some kind of challenge. Sometimes the challenge is you just suddenly have too many customers, or you have more money and cash flow than you actually expected. So those are challenges. A lot of businesses, it's the reverse. But I think that, again, once you've done your research, then you just have to jump in and do it. I think dive in. Yeah, for sure.
Now you're working. This is one last thing I want to ask you about. And this is a great conversation, by the way. I love this conversation. You're working on something called 100 by 100. Is
Mm-hmm.
that what
Yeah.
it's called? 100 by
Yes.
100?
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah. It sounds very mysterious,
Yes.
and I have to say it goes a lot to do with many people not necessarily having somebody. And a few weeks ago, for some odd reason, in a week, 3 customers, some actually whom I think one I know a bit, but the other 2 I didn't know. And actually another one, they came into the shop at different times, and the one word they used is lonely. And they were lonely for different reasons. One didn't have a partner in life, and maybe they wanted a companion. One a couple had lost their companions in the last 2 years. And so they kind of, and it was right at the tip of between summer and winter that they were, and fall that they came in and were feeling this way. And one more recently was a younger girl who is in her 20s. And again, for all these people, the word they said, they were lonely. So for me, this idea of 100 and 100 is actually simple in a sense. It's knowing that the holiday is coming, and there are several people who are not going to have anyone to, and they might, but they will have no one to spend the holiday with. So why not give them a gift? Let them get some gift for the holiday. It could be something small as candles or something, just a little gift to say, you're thought of. We know that you exist, and we want you to know that there are people outside your environment in whatever state you're feeling who are available for a chat or for you just know that you're thought of, and so you're not alone. So the 100 by 100 is about giving gifts and making some gifts available for 100 people within the community. And the connections I've made are with the Metuchen Food Pantry, and they know a couple of organizations in the next town where they're folks who, not that they haven't necessarily lost anyone because of COVID, and they're not necessarily older, but also young people who are likely going to spend the holiday by themselves. So it's really a fundraising for people to gift 100 gifts to 100 recipients who hopefully would feel that there's someone out there who's available to have a chat with them.
I can tell, like, you're a very sincere person. I can tell when you speak of your company, it's from the heart. And I just appreciate that you took the time to speak to me tonight.
Thank you.
I hope all is well with you, and we'll hear more from you in the coming episodes, hopefully. Yes.
It's been absolutely wonderful. Emmy, thank you so much for having me. And I think, just so that you know, I appreciate you as a business owner. You've been around for a long time, certainly longer than my 2 years. And you are such a fabulous resource, honestly, whether it's just in terms of information, but I think sometimes it's even just bouncing ideas. Sometimes business owners, I don't remember who said this.
Actually, not to cut you off, but I have an idea for you after this.
Oh, okay.
We'll talk later.
Well, all right, sure. But all I'm saying is that there's this phrase someone has said, entrepreneurship is a lonely journey. And it is so true. But my gosh, there's so many individuals out there, and you're one who understands this, and you make yourself available. So
thank you. And this is wonderful. And thank you for sharing, and have a lovely day. Thank you.
More talk with Amy. More talk with Amy. More talk with Amy.